Well, Kenton, thank you so much. Welcome to the Streaking with Friends podcast.
Well, I'm not the host, but I just asked off camera. I'm like, tell me about the story. Why streaking with friends?
Sure. So I'll try to tell it as concisely as I can. 8 or so years ago, I was kind of inspired on a long run to run every day. I thought this idea in my head very quickly. It came to me, and I said, how great would it be if I committed to running at least a mile every single day? And then how cool would it be if I encouraged other people to do that and started a bit of a movement? Well, naively, I thought that I was the first person to ever think of that. And then I quickly found out that there are many other streakers out there, okay, run streakers. And so I've kind of coupled that together with part of what my experience has been during that run, which is um, let's just say there have been certain moments throughout life in the distant past, as well as maybe in the recent past, that were particularly painful. And so some of those painful moments presented itself in front of kind of my current consciousness during the time. And I thought about this idea of stripping those things away. And so born was the idea of streaking and sticking on a run streak, but then also recognizing that we all have certain layers to ourselves that need to be stripped away and stripped down. And so it kind of fit with the idea of running naked across a football stadium or wherever it would go, because that takes some courage, a little bit of edge and a little bit of maybe knowing yourself to be willing to do that. And so I just kind of wrapped all that up and thought I would want to, listen to people tell their stories.
Oh, Jason, that is awesome. Because the first thing with streaking with friends that I thought of was obviously just running naked. And I didn't know if the podcast ended that way. But what caught, so I don't get an enormous amount of invitations to these kind of things. But when I did, and even when I do, I'm just like, I don't know, do I really want to veer off course? But it was the name that caught me, and then the hyper organization of the whole exchange with the setup and I was like, wow, this is like so organized. But in high school, we had a basketball intramural team, and it was Wally Horn, Derek Cunningham, Nate Conley, Josh Grill, and Bill Snow. We called ourselves the Streakers. I don't know. Now, we specifically were not trying to go on any running streak. We thought it was funny. We never streaked naked, but we thought it was funny.
That's great. So, but I'm sure you're probably a fan. At some level, you appreciate old school and Will Ferrell, right? We're
Yeah.
streaking
Oh,
through the quad into the
yeah.
gymnasium.
We're streaking.
Bring your bring your green hat. Bring it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, too, admittedly, that is kind of part of my own story. Is that I was the guy 20 years ago, or however long ago I was in high school, where, the random kid that just wound up naked for no reason sometimes. So that is part of
Yeah.
my story. So that does fit into the theme today too.
Yeah, I won't lie. There's been a time or two that I was standing around like, why am I the only one naked swimming in the lake? But
Yeah. Well,
oh, that's
Kenton, let's bring it. Yeah, well, let's maybe bring it a little more, a bit into today and maybe help me and everyone who might come across this or listen to it understand a little bit more about you. So, if you don't mind, in just kind of an open question type of way, man, tell us who's Kenton and kind of, where should we start?
yeah, that's funny. It feels like so I just turned 54 last week, and it feels like the older I get, the more the story sort of just fades away. I was this summer I was back home in Warsaw, Indiana, where I grew up in the Midwest, and I was on the boat with some friends from high school, and they're like, or maybe some new friends of their friends, I don't know, and they asked me something. What's it like to come back to Warsaw? And I go back every year because I have an aunt who's almost 90, and it was my dad's sister, and I love her, and we just always go back and see her. But I told them it was kind of like a little bit of a lucid dream. Like it doesn't feel like home anymore. It's not like when I would go home at college on break. That felt it was home. And
Sure.
so what is Kenton? Who is Kenton? Where do I come from? What do I do? I don't know. I think what I'm striving to do is being present now so that I can
Mhm.
let go of worries of the past and worries of the future. But that said, I can answer the question by saying a lot of questions that come up on either live streams or YouTube questions are have I always been an artist? And the answer is tricky because you have to define what you consider an artist. I've always drawn. I just say I've always drawn. I've always drawn. Whether I'm in, I remember senior year in college. Now, granted, I was getting a technical illustration degree, but it was not a drawing class. It was a lecture class where we had professionals come in and talk to us about technical illustration, about professionalism, about our future. And and I know what the cover was supposed to be, and I'm like, screw that, man. I drew every Friday at lecture. I drew pictures of whoever was lecturing, and then I collaged them. And now this is before Photoshop. Well, Photoshop existed, but this is really before we had a lot of access. It was Photoshop 2 and black and white monitor. And so, yeah, I took the bullet and got a lower grade because of the cover. But yeah, I just always had to draw. Always had to draw. And I'll wrap up this little segment by just saying, who is Kenton? Where's he been? Because there is a connection. I am a full. I make now. Have I always been an artist? I have not made any money as an artist my entire life for any relative points. Not enough to turn in on your taxes. How about that? But
Yeah.
2 years ago, over 2.5 years ago, a friend just I was working corporate America as a motion graphics artist, and a friend said from home, he's like, "You should put your stuff on TikTok. People would connect with it." And the short story is 4 months later, I quit the job I was working because I couldn't keep up with orders, with everything that was happening with the live stream show, which is now called Your Name Matters. So that's Kenton right now.
Kenton, that is incredible. And the even through the just hearing how that came to be, I love how you talked about the idea of it kind of still evolving, right? Like it's still kind of developing. So help me with that. So your name matters. Where was the inspiration for that? How did that come about? Talk to us about that.
Oh yeah, I love to. It gives me chills. It gives me chills. I get so excited. So I was not looking to start a live stream. In fact, when I got on TikTok 2.5 years ago in February of 23, I guess, or 22, I don't know. Don't make me do math. And I thought, this is great. My back's to the camera. Got a face for radio. This is going to be awesome. People will look at the art, and I'll just post and ghost. And sales, shot through the roof the first month. It was crazy. But like all like spikes, there's the reason they call it a spike because there is the other half of the spike, and this spike went down to like nothing. Let's just say no money and no orders. But I was so into posting and doing art and drawing and sharing that I thought, well, I should try live streaming because that felt like the next step. And so when I started live streaming, once someone said, the backstory, I spent 2 years obsessed with hand lettering and learning the alphabet and the letters and the techniques. And so the short story is I was just live streaming, not knowing what to do, not really engaging with the camera, just drawing. And then one day I drew my name and then added it to one of the, just any of the doodles that I do, if we'll call them that. And someone said, this is the key. This is Kenton Hoppus's Business 101 for Dummies. Don't
Okay, I'm
sell
ready. Look, I'm on edge. I'm listening. I'm ready.
don't sell anything. Just do your thing. Maybe your thing is making toothbrushes. I don't know what your thing is, but my thing was just to draw and paint. And when I added my name and drew a doodle, instantly someone's like, "Can you do my name?" I write David, I draw random. They didn't tell me how or why or when. I was still being authentic to me. I was doing my thing. Letters to me are just lines, just like any other line. And we'll say David. It probably wasn't David. David's like, now how do I buy that? So my next step is, I don't know. So I created a path to purchase. So that's my business 101. When there's a need, you don't pull weeds that aren't in the yard. You pull a weed when it's in the yard. And so, and there's a reverse thinking. So I made path to purchase. I won't bore you with the details, but within 2 weeks, a path to purchase was set up through the website, and I was off to the races. It just started building, and the culmination of that, and who knows what else was happening, but it just intersected with time and resources. So that's when I shifted. Oh, so how did Your Name Matter? Well, it's been 2.5 years I've been live streaming on this Your Name Matters, and the show involves 15 sheets of paper, and people just drop their name. You put Jason in the chat, or if you have a child named Dougie, you put Dougie, my 4-year-old, and then you leave it up to me. You don't buy anything. We never say you can buy these. We never say this is how you order these if you want. In fact, and the moderator gets ticked off at me about that. I'm like, we got to stop trying to sell. Let them ask. I'm going to draw it. And if then they will say, how do I order that? And then, so it's no skin in the game for me, no skin in the game for them. So last week, things were stagnant things have been stagnant, I think, for me this year. And I'm like, what is it? And I was sitting on the beach, and this is how the name came about. I'm like, the show needs a name. The show needs a name. 10,000 people, 5 to 10,000 people will come in and out of the room in 1 hour. But you only have 150 people in the room at one time. So with those numbers, just do the math. I mean, new people are coming in every single second, not knowing what the heck's going on. We can't explain every second. So I thought the show needs a name, and it hit me, Your Name Matters. And so I painted that last week on the board. It's brand new. So that's how it happened.
No kidding. So that what's on the board right now is as new as last week.
Yeah, last week. Wednesday, I think.
But you've been operating in that manner where in your mind, you had this idea that like it was built around the concept of Your Name Matters.
Yeah.
But then just this week or just last week, it got named officially.
Yeah, it just got named. I don't know if it helps generate names. I still feel sometimes we have to pull teeth, but to get names. But people are there; they want to put their names in. They're just coming in and they don't know. They sit back. So I just thought it was good branding, in a sense of not Your Name Matters, and you can order. I found people are smart. We don't ask for likes, follows, or shares. People, if they want, I just trust you as a human. If you like it, you'll like it. If you want to share it, you'll share it. If you want to buy it, you'll buy it. You'll figure now I do strive daily to create, not daily, but I strive for clarity and easy path to purchase. I mean, that's just common sense. I like the Southwest Flying app because it's so much easier than the other apps.
Sure. Kenton, that's such a great point. And I can kind of lean into that a bit so my entire career formally, right, like professionally, has been in finance in some way or another, right? In banking or in lending or in financial advising or some way or another. And the thought is that it's around selling the other person on using your services, right? So in some form of sales. But for me, what I associate with much better than trying to come across as this overzealous salesperson is I would just rather be attractive, right?
Yeah.
Instead of pursuing this person, and convincing and selling them and all this groveling, how about you just spend more time focused on the things that you have control over, and it takes care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are some of the, I'm interested because in your avenue, I mean, I relate everything to music, because like if I hear a song, the industry has to create path to purchase for me to get to the concert. They have to do that. I'm not going to know where it's at. But that said, the song the song, it hooked me. I was sold on the song, and no one
Right.
ever said buy my album. They just, so how'd that look? I'm curious, how does that, because sales, come on, man. Sales, finance, investment, all that's banking. Uh, it's I don't want to lump it in a negative context, but yeah, it is heavy. It is heavy pushing. Like, how did that look for you? Like specifically, like when you're interacting with people.
Sure. So I, again, always being in sales, but at the same time, almost having this adverse feeling about sales, right? I hated
Mm-hmm.
the idea of the overzealous salesperson. So for me, it wound up becoming overwhelmingly focused on human behavior. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
And so, as I observed and just paid great attention to how people operated, certain things highlight themselves, right? So most people would would ideally like their financial situation to be improved, right? They would like more stability, they would like things to be better. So basically all you need to display or make available to them is the idea that you are the pathway for their improved financial security.
Mm-hmm.
And you tell a story that, hey, look, we work with clients that exhibit these characteristics. And then you tell the story of clients that you actually work with
Mm-hmm.
that exhibit high quality, high character, qualities. And then the person that you're in front of is naturally going to be attracted to that because they have this natural human desire to be a better version of their current situation. They look at their balance sheet and as maybe appreciative or as as proud as they might be of where they are relative to where they might have been, there's always this thing that's working that says, man, I wonder how much better I could be, I wonder how much better it could get for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so basically letting people know in that that's available to them through me, then they become attracted to it and then they ask to work with you.
Oh, that's beautiful, Jason. It reminds me of two things. One, I had a friend who was a teacher. He's in his 70s. He's retired. He said that kids don't care how much you know, and it makes me want to cry until they know how much you care. And that was with the show Your Name Matters. We were running into some things the past couple weeks that were very frustrating, and I knew in my heart I don't like to be snappy. To the moderator, I don't like to be short with people. Or my mom, it flies out of my mouth, and I'm instantly aware that, oh, that was a jerky thing to say. And apologies just don't, at 54, apologies, while they might be, they're just words. The bigger thing that I look to is, instead of apologize. But now, how do I not do that again? So, and and I think of in your industry, and the same thing with Your Name Matters. It's like that, saying those words disarms me. When someone's being frustrating in the chat, when I say frustrating, I mean they're spamming the chat with I'll use your name. I'll throw you under the bus. Do
Please do.
do Jason, do Jason, do Jason, do Jason, paint Jason, paint Jason, paint Jason, paint my name, paint my name, paint my name, paint my name. And normally, it's a lot. There's a lot of energy coming at you.
Right.
And when I say Your Name Matters, it's like I can feel it all melt away. It's about making it about them, but making it about them in an authentic way that I truly believe it is about them, as opposed to, I'm going to use this mantra so that I get what I want. And when you give other people, I was thinking of my friend Andy Dalton. He was a post college roommate, and Andy was super business, high and tight, super business. Laughed all the time, loved to have fun, but never really opened up. And he was my roommate. And I realized if I wanted Andy to open up, all I had to do was stop talking. I would come in and I would give him the silent treatment. I was right next to him, putting away dishes, walking around him, sitting next to him. Boy, you couldn't get the guy to shut up that night, So I don't know.
Kenton, there's so much genius in that. It's not even funny. Like, how,
Oh,
yeah. What do you have to do to get someone to open up? Shut up.
shut up. That's well. I thought of you and your industry. I mean, people. It's their money. They're nervous about. For me, money is it's just a tool or a resource. But my nervousness comes from uh, am I going to mess it up? Am I going to be irresponsible with what's been given to me? And so that's why we work with people that know how to replace clutches in our cars and stuff like that. Is you can't take on the world's to do list. You know, you have to trust people.
Yeah, let people be good at what they're good at, and you be
Yes.
good at what you're good at.
Yeah. Exactly.
Man, but I would also share too, and you mentioned how emotionally charged money can be, right? It's one of those things that, people have their own experience with it. And so we have to be very delicate with meeting people where they are. To your point of trying to be fully present,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's this idea of developing a posture that says, I I see you. I recognize that what you carry into this is built on a certain collection of experiences that you either are proud of and are excited to have gone through or that you've contributed to, or you might not be so proud of the collection of experiences that you've had financially or otherwise. But regardless of what you bring into this, my way of interacting with you is going to be so open and so accepting and so understanding that I'm going to create space for you to share what's important to you, regardless of where direction I want things to go. And so with that as the foundation, we often become, and it's just you're not good at this role unless you do this, but you have to become a great listener, and you develop a certain curiosity that is, how do I ask the next question that goes one layer deeper? How do I ask the next question that goes even a step further to really draw out the things that are important to the person that's in front of you? Because again, when I talked about paying attention to human behavior, it's very rare that a sensible person, a normal thinking human, will divulge the deep pain immediately, right? It's very rare that that happens. If you
Yeah.
experience something where someone immediately walks up to you and meets you for the first time, oh, Kenton, hey, did you know that when I was 6 years old, so and so touched me? Or what?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's a problem. But
Yeah.
but you can offer space that's comfortable enough for people to let the conversation get there strategically and intentionally, but also to your point, authentically.
Yeah.
Because the idea is in a real way, their name matters, but in a real way, their story matters. That's my version of their name matters, right? Their story matters. And so I want to create space that lets them feel comfortable enough to share that deeper layer of their story.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, it just keep piggybacking if that's okay. I
Sure.
I'll share a personal story. 2000, I want to say 2018. I was in a place where I felt okay. So I met this. I was at a thing for our daughter's fifth grade, whatever, and everyone's like, "You're gonna love Andrew. Andrew likes bicycles." So they think if I like bicycles and Andrew likes bicycles, then what are we? What are we? 6 years old?
Right.
We're gonna connect, and
Sure.
I can connect around bicycles with pretty much anyone. But I went home. I'm like, I don't know. I like bikes. He likes bikes, but I wouldn't call him for coffee. And
Sure.
then I'm just gonna make it up. A year passes or whatever. We're back at another thing. Our kids are in the same class, and I come home that night, and I say something's different about Andrew. Andrew has changed. I love Andrew. I want to spend time with Andrew. And our daughter's mom said, "Oh, Andrew went through a men's therapy group, and for 36 weeks." And I'm like, I went to go through this emotional therapy group with men, and that, and I'll cut the story there. As far as that, I did enroll and spent 36 weeks and tons of tears, and it brings me to the point I'm trying to make is it's all in layers, and I didn't even know when layers would be peeled. But this is what I give it back to what I do for work currently. What I've given the opportunity to do is when people ask for advice, I simply say just do whatever you want to do a lot and you will learn. Life will teach you. If you show up every day, and if you show up every day and you run 1 mile every day, you're going to run out of enthusiasm. You're going to run out of motivation and you're going to run out of discipline unless you love it. And once no matter how miserable, I can't stand to run. But so that's what I tell people. I go, but I've run marathon before and tons of half marathons because there was something about the whole package of getting to that race that I loved. And if you just show up every day, your onions gets peeled. I think you learn.
Sure.
That was sort of a ramble. I don't even know where I was going on that one.
No, that was beautiful. What I heard just now was a really great story about something that I'm pretty passionate about, which is allow the person that you're in front of to surprise you.
Oh, that's good.
Interact with this version of the person as opposed to the stored up memory of experiences that you have with them. Because to your point, Andrew was a different person the last time that you saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And then this newest version of Andrew, you wouldn't have been attracted or interested in spending any bit of time with this new version of Andrew if you approached him through the perspective of he's in a certain box based off of your last experience with him, right?
Exactly.
That's unfair to Andrew. That's unfair to you because you're living based off of an old you're living but you're interacting with the memory of a person instead of interacting with the current version of the person. And so I want to really highlight this because it fits well in your idea of I want to be fully present, right? I want to be so present right now that I do the best I can to let those things that occurred in the past be in the past and let all the anxieties and the anticipations of the future be in the future. And I want to collect as much of my attention as I can and I want to offer it to this moment. And in that way, if we practice that, Kenton, if we practice that in a beautiful way, okay, yes, I'm married. Yes, I have two beautiful children. Yes, there are all these wonderful people that are in my life. But right now, in a certain way, Kenton is the most important person in my life because you have my attention and I have your attention. And this is a bit of synergy that it won't ever be replicated in exactly the same way again. So to your point, turn the cameras on. Let's roll, baby, right?
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes. Let's see what happens because when you capture this moment, it's pure, it's real, it's live, as opposed to having all these stale dated things that you carry with you. So that's a bit of kind of how I think about what you just shared so beautifully.
Oh, thanks. Well, I appreciate the word. I appreciate that share, and I appreciate the concept of synergy. I think that's often overlooked in my day to day operating as a one man show for the most part, fulfilling everything and forgetting to be open to synergy. Because
Yeah,
yeah, so thanks.
I have some thoughts if you're open or willing
Yeah,
to share.
absolutely.
So, man, so this emotional journey that you went on, right? The 36 months, what would maybe one or two things that you didn't anticipate would be revealed, that were revealed to you, that you think had the most profound impact, the most healing impact? What were maybe one or two of those things, if you're willing to share?
Yeah. So 36 weeks, and it was the group was called Breakthrough for Men, based out of Monterey, California. The right away, the first thing that I did not even know was happening is I had I used to share this on the show, not to this extent, but when I first started painting, I was obsessed with. Let me grab a marker. So these pens, you can go straight on the board and they can run really easy. They're called squeezers, mops, and stuff. So I was obsessed with creating a teardrop on all the characters. I mean, it was so bad that people would place orders in advance and say, no teardrop. I was putting teardrops on everybody, their kids, their husband, their wife, everyone was crying. And subconsciously, I don't know why I was doing it. Maybe it's just fun, but I felt it was, you do 2 dots for eyes, you make one cry, way more powerful. Okay, so back to the Breakthrough group. I go into this group, and I'm not sure exactly when it happened, but they dive right into your feelings, and they would ask me, how are you feeling when we're discussing said topic? How do you feel? And I honestly could look at them and I say, it's weird, but I don't feel anything. I go,
Mm,
I have, and I'm going to give information that came to me later, but I'm like,
sure.
I have learned to train myself that when I get scared, I shove it down and I go to work. And go to work means it could be about anything, trying to change your situation instead of me facing it. Short on money, not going to make rent this month. Don't even think about how you feel. You shove it down. And that went with everything. Something good happened, I'm feeling joy, shove it down because I didn't earn it. I was all up into. I didn't realize I'd programmed myself for 48 years at the time to earn, deserve, command, everything. And I know specifically on a lighter note, not light, but on a lighter note, I know where that started. I'm a 4 or 5-year-old boy in Indiana in the Midwest. I'm just going to say it. You can't be gay or cry. You know what I mean? And while I'm not gay, I cried a lot. And so I would, and used to be 5 years old in the Midwest in 1975 and cry, and you're a boy, and no one says he's so in touch with his emotions. now, now be 10 years old and want to cry. He's so affectionate. He cries out of joy. He cries out of loss. You just don't cry. Boys don't cry, and men don't cry. And so I would dig my fingernails as hard as I possibly could, almost to blood, almost to bleeding. If I don't think I broke skin, but I came pretty darn close. I'd pinch and pull and twist my skin, and that was my trick to not cry. I mean, it was so much more painful. It took the focus off of the flush of blood and tears coming to my head, and took it down to my arms. That then I understand why I don't condone. I hope it doesn't happen to anyone ever again. But I understand now why people cut to relieve. I didn't understand at the time, but now I understand the relieving pain through shifting it to a different focus. And so, yeah, so that's what I learned. I learned a ton more, but that was a starting point. Is that I learned that I'm gonna have feelings and emotions, and I'm gonna be okay. I can deal with them, not deal. I can accept them, and to the point where at the end of the 36 weeks, we all got in a circle, and there was an inner circle facing the outer circle. So this is the inner circle man, and this is the outer circle man, and you would shift like this. Can you picture that? You're shifting, and so
Yeah.
you're just acknowledging each person in the group, and so you're getting to talk to everybody, and then you shuffle back up and you switch. I didn't say any words. I just, like, it was almost like 2 hoses were sticking out of my eyes and the waters were just pouring down. to the point where I was totally okay with it. Didn't even tell anyone. I'd get to the next man and he'd be shocked. Like they had been through the group, they knew emotions, but they're all like, "Yo, Ken, are you okay? Dude, are you okay?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm better than okay, you know? I'm just letting it flow, baby."
So it was not part of the exercise that you needed to share anything. It was basically just
No, we were just
looking
saying,
at,
we were
you were just,
just like looking at each other saying, it might have been like, it was like our farewell. It was the last day of the training. And it was kind of our like, this is a way to look each man in the eye. And if you want to share something, you can. I just cried. I just cried the whole time. So, but they were tears of joy, you know, tears of relief. So that was my takeaway from that.
that's incredible. I'm sure the emotions when you first reconciled with going back into that experience of grabbing your hand the first time that that happened, I'm sure that was probably pretty emotional as well, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even bringing up this time in my life, which was in 2018, I can feel for maybe one of the first times in a long time the energy right here in my throat, and I don't know anything about chakras and all that stuff, but and during that whole time when people would say, "Where do you feel?" We're discussing something emotional or stressful. Where do you feel it in your body or challenging? And I would always say, I feel like Darth Vader is doing that. You know how do you remember Star Wars 1
Dude,
where where he chokes out that guy just using the force?
yeah,
I feel like I'm being choked out by the force. But now, as I'm feeling the being choked out by the force by just sharing the experience, I can say, "Oh, that's interesting." I can just try to relax my body and not try to shove it down or what do I need to put on my to-do list today to make that go away.
right. That's so healthy. And I'm guessing there was some type of exercise or some type of instruction from the facilitator around, and I use this terminology to objectively look at that experience, meaning you don't want to place blame on anyone else who might have caused that to be a problem for you. You don't want to carry with you any guilt or shame or fault for that experience. But how do you watch that experience sit on the palm of your hand of sorts, or see it in the sky of sorts, and just let that cloud kind of, go away, and just watch it dissolve in a healthy way, and let it flow through you, recognizing that you don't have to carry that with you, right? I think about like a FedEx truck with all of these packages, right?
Yeah.
That loaded down with all of this crap in the back of it. And we're driving around. We're the little guy in the front with this just huge thing on our back. But we don't realize that we can allow those packages to like fall out of the back, and we don't have to have this big huge FedEx truck. Those packages can just fall off, and but we carry those emotions into our new environment every single time because they're still stored up. To your point, they just get pushed down and they live there, instead of realizing that you can just look at the package. It might be painful temporarily, and in fact, the pain will probably increase the
Yes.
more, right? The more attention you give it, the pain will increase, but eventually the package is going to evaporate,
Hmm.
right? It's going to evaporate and just fall out the back of the truck.
Jason, I love it. I love it. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna picture myself now. What I'd like to think I can do is picture myself just turning off the keys and walking away from the truck and let everything go. But the reality is I'll probably in a more day-to-day application have to say, "Oh, this is just one package in the truck." And eventually the truck will lighten up and then maybe I can walk away. But right now I'm pushing the truck off the cliff. I don't need the truck.
Sure.
But
That's exactly right. But what else we have to be prepared for is, yes, the truck did exist at some point and it does exist, but then
yes.
what also happens is new packages start showing up in the corner of our bedroom, in our living room, and we can't just go on about our lives because the packages would overwhelm the place. They would overload the place. So we have to stay a bit diligent. And that's part of what my run does for me every day. That's part of the streaking idea is streaking is an active removal of those packages that build up. So any packages that built up over the last 24 hours, my responsibility is to look unflinchingly at that package and allow it to dissolve, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't build it up in the corner.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I knew that I didn't know I was doing it at the time, but when I got out of college, I moved to Arizona, then to California, and I've moved around a lot and always thinking like, I mean, a lot, like different jobs, a lot. While I've been self-employed for half of my 30 years out of college, probably 15 of them, there were 15 years I had jobs. I've had over 30 jobs and 30 addresses in the past 30 years. So, um,
That's quite a bit of moving.
it does, and it might be 7 moves. Sometimes I could do a move every other month. This is before I had a child. Well, it's still a lot of moving after having a child, but not. I mean, with this thought that the next thing will make all the old things like that. The next thing will make all the old things that they won't come with me. So I loved how I talked about getting out of the truck, and you brought up to me. I have a friend Tony who's like you, Jason. He'll listen to you and he's like, "Yep, but there'll be some packages in your bedroom waiting for you." And I was like, "Yes, the goal isn't to figure it all out, but to learn." I guess I'm learning, or I'm hoping to live life a little bit like I run this business, is not try to fix or set any goals with numbers at the end, but rather how do I make today's show better? So
That's right. I love that. Um, man, I think about how different that is, meaning like there's there's a couple of ways, there's many different ways to look at life, but if we were to just zone in on these two ideas, the idea of giving more attention to the anticipation or the expectation or the goal of what we're trying to accomplish, or to give more attention and appreciation to the things that already exist, right? Like if we were to tilt one way or the other, what's the healthiest way? And what tells us what's the healthiest way, right? Society, and I don't want to paint capitalism in a bad light, because I in a certain way I see a lot of strengths in capitalism and it's healthy in a lot of ways, but this idea of success being defined as this, right, this ever evolving growth from a balance sheet standpoint, this ever evolving growth from a revenue standpoint, this ever evolving growth from all of these other measurable metrics, that if you give so much attention to that, you can't help but realize that that's highlighting something that isn't yet part of your world, right? It's highlighting something that's somewhere else.
mm-hmm.
Opposed to, do I want to peek into the future? Do I want to glimpse into what I would like to do? Yes, with an overwhelming focus. And I think of anchoring, right? So I use an anchoring terminology and how I refer to things, but I would rather be anchored in the present and
Yeah,
then dip my toe in the future, as opposed to being anchored in the future and then intermittently checking in to right now, right? And
yeah.
so and so I think in that type of framework is, where are you anchored? And what are your thoughts on that, Kenton?
Oh, that wow, this is awesome, Jason, because I was so present and just listening and enthralled. I felt like I was like at a convention. The speaker just had me wrapped up. That I had no, how the mind will sometimes be listening but thinking about what it wants to respond. I didn't have anything, so this is good. So where am I anchored? I think I'm anchored in the past. This year, I would say this year. Last year was a blur because there was so much growth and so much was happening, and it wasn't slowing down, and it was beyond any numbers that I would, not it wasn't beyond numbers that I thought I was worth or valued, but it was right up there. You know, it was like, wow, this is happening. These are big numbers for my past life experience. And let's just say I have a savings account, not to.
It exists. There's
I
act
have as
over
a
it.
yes. If I were to stop working, I could retire as long as I died next Tuesday. No, that's a comedian joke. But no, like for the first time in literally in my life, there was a self-employment savings account for a couple months, you know. So, but back to the anchor. So this year's anchor, as sales have dipped, they haven't plummeted, but they've dipped a solid, steady dip. Um, I anchor myself in the phrase, what am I asked to do today? Because I get caught up in thinking I could make the website better. But I have an order from the UK. I have two orders here, and you know, I have things that literally can and are being paid for. That's what's being asked for me today. With a live stream show, it's easy to go into the show thinking, gosh, I hope we have a lot of sales. Now, remember, we're painting 7,000 sheets of paper for free. So it's a numbers game. We don't know who's going to buy, why, when, or where. So I found that in the past, when I reflect back on the past, I don't remember what nights sold and what nights didn't. But I do remember this. A lot of times I would get lost in the actual painting of the name and the image so deeply that I didn't hear that. Maybe I just hear the music faintly. I would forget that I was live streaming. I mean, did I forget I was live streaming? No, I wasn't like, whoa, what are you guys doing here? But I was lost in the art. So I think I try to anchor myself in what I have control over. And then the second thing to that, if you have to do something to have control over it, then you don't have control over it. I anchor myself in that. I mean people could disagree with that, but what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with setting aside money to grow with interest if you don't need to use it and stuff like. I love it, but I can't control who's going to order and who's going to buy. But what I can control is posting videos, making better content, and serving the people who most likely a high percent aren't able to purchase their name because of the cost. Just serve that like as if it's the only name I'll ever paint in my life, and try to make it the best I can within the time, within the parameters of the show. So I try to anchor myself in the task at hand, whether it's filling up the paint jars. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'll just finish by saying, Jason, 90% of the time, I'm not anchored in those moments. But I'm getting better at like, oh, I used to have to tear sheets of paper to get ready for a show mindlessly and thinking, I wish I had someone else to do this for me. To really slow down and just tear them because that's what needs to be done right now. So anyway, just trying to anchor myself in the task at hand, like being here on this podcast. And then later I committed to lunch with my mom. So try to just, that's the time not to be thinking about somewhere else, you know?
Sure. I, man, again, I love that's your verbiage, that's your way of referring to it, but it fits very much in line with being anchored in the present, right? Being anchored right now. So I share this thought as something that I wrote down one day just from inspiration, but my goal is to continuously and completely lose myself in present moment awareness in a spirit of gratitude. And the idea behind that is there's nothing wrong with this moment. So why would I feel compelled to escape it?
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing wrong right now, right? There's no one attacking you. There's no one pursuing you or causing conflict with you. There's nothing that's coming at you or right or no disturbance. So if you just rest and just enjoy the beauty that is what's currently right in front of you. You may or may not, that not from an attractive standpoint or from an intimate standpoint, but what I'm saying is just the idea of resting in appreciation for the moment, like that at the end of the day is what you're talking about when you're tearing the sheet, right? I appreciate in a certain way. I live with an appreciation that my hands are capable of grabbing the sheet and ripping it from the thing. And I have the ability to do that instead of relying on someone else to do it.
Yeah. Can I ask you, like, who, because everything, even positive change groups, mentors, who's in your life that like inspires, leads, guides, encourages you? Or where do you
That's
draw that? Where do you draw that stuff from?
that's a great question. So for me personally, it's my faith, right? So I'm personally I'm a Christian, and so I grew up in an environment that had an appreciation for faith and for God, going to church. But I would almost say that most of my life, Kenton, it was almost going through the motions, right? Most of my life, it was just something that I did as opposed to consciously being invested in it the way that I am, consciously being invested in life the way that I am now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I use this phrase of saying I've lived most of my life blissfully unaware,
Yeah.
and now I live my life consciously present, right? So this
Mhm.
idea that I live in such a way that I attempt, although imperfectly, I attempt to recruit all of the attention that I have available to me and bring it with us right now, and kind of recognize that anything outside of this moment is not really under my control, or really not. I don't want to say it's not my business, but it's not, like, right, like I don't need to be invested in that. um but so to me, who really influences me and encourages me today, when you ask like who's in my life, it's a lot of historical figures. It's a lot of people like, a lot of the Stoics back in the day. I spend a lot of time with Marcus Aurelius. I spend a lot of time with, name any of them, any of the old Aristotle, Plato, all those guys, Will
Mhm.
Durant, a lot of the older folks, but then also a lot of spiritual people, right? So a lot of the ways that I process things are through things that I've heard said by saints.
Mhm.
Um, but then also too, it's this unique coupling. It's the unique coupling, Kenton, that it's marrying kind of Western Christianity with an Eastern mindfulness that forms together in a synergistic type of way, right? To use the
Yeah.
term of safety, it's not either or exclusively. It's this beautiful cohesion that occurs in how I process things. So I meditate daily,
Mhm.
um, in an Eastern philosophical type of way,
Mhm.
but then there's also that depth of spirituality that I think of, in more of a Western type of way. um but then also too, um it's so great. Thank you so much for the question to give me a chance to share this. um it's a really great appreciation for people who are living authentically. That's who stands out to me, right? So when I see Kenton's authentic expression through your art, I look at you as someone who's in my life, who has positive influence over me, because I see the beauty and the genius in what you're doing, and I see you putting as much of your whole self that you can muster together and offer to your art. You're doing that on a regular basis, and so when I come across people like Kenton, and when I come across the yous of the world, I'm inspired by that, right? I'm inspired by that authenticity. But at the same time, and this is good, can kind of be a bit of a paradoxical thought. I don't necessarily place celebrities or well-known people in a category that's unreachable by what most people would think of as the everyday person, right? I approach or interact with a named celebrity not being starstruck, not being, oh, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown because I've been waiting my whole life to meet so and so, and now my life's over. No, 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 it's not that. It's an appreciation for what they do either on screen or in their profession, but I also normalize the experience and have a great respect for them, but place them in a space that's like, hey, you're really great, but you being really great doesn't snuff out the light that I bring to this moment, right? It doesn't minimize the value that I bring to this interaction. So I would appreciate, not that I need your validation, but I would appreciate if we would be able to arrive at some type of like mutual appreciation, mutual respect. I think that that would be a great way for us to move forward, right? That would be a great way for us to respect and just enjoy each other, right?
That's great. Yeah,
Man, that's
wow.
really so I'm sorry.
No,
I'm
that was
sorry.
good. That was good. I was asking for a reason because when I was 29, so I grew up in the church too, Christian Baptist church, but I was just going through the motion. I kind of was going through motions, but also I felt good too. But sometimes people, once again, not a lot, but they'll just approach me and they'll say, "There's a light, there's an energy. What's going on with you? Why am I feeling that you have something? You're shining." And I don't know how to answer that question other than whatever I'm putting in comes out, and what I've been putting in is oh, I wanted you the word inspiration. That's what I want to talk about. People ask who inspires you. Keith Haring. They name artist. What artists inspire you? And I don't say none because artists inspire me. But I think when Michael Jordan looks at other basketball players, he doesn't think, "Gosh, that guy inspires me." It's competitive for them, but for an artist, it's not competitive other than a race to your own self expression. So but music inspires me because it's people saying things in a way with instruments in their voice that I can feel. And when I see people living a life, whether they're an investment banker or a tax attorney or a doctor or the grocery clerk, if they're living a life that it can inspire any life. I tell people anyone can inspire me. There's a high school teacher who's a really good friend of mine. He's always inspired me. Just the way he lives, his enthusiasm inspires me.
That's beautiful, and that fits right with the idea of what I shared is the idea of someone living an authentic expression is inspiring,
It
right?
is.
Whether basketball player or an artist or whoever, if someone has the courage, right? If they have the courage to display the things that are important to them authentically, that's inspiring. And so that's why, similar to the your name matters, when someone tells their story courageously, right? When they courageously share things that might be painful to them, and that expression is visible and is detected by someone in the audience or detected by someone who might come across that new character for the first time, but yet they notice something about that person that says, wow, they were willing to expose themselves in that type of way. But when they self reflect, they realize that I'm still, to what Kenton shared earlier, I'm still kind of pressing my own self down, right? I'm pressing my own expression down. Why am I doing that, right? They were able to do it. Why can't I express myself? And so that's what I'm hoping is happening here. And that's what I hope to be able to communicate more broadly And it'd be hard for someone to convince me that this is not valuable time spent.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they don't have to. You're in control of that. I think about that too. I'm pushing, not pushing. I'm pushing time towards. I'll do that. Shifting a lot of time towards YouTube video creation, both long form and short form content. And I'm thinking, am I wasting my time? Does this matter? And I'm like, no, because I have control of that time block, and I enjoy it. So I'm not taking away from time on the Your Name Matters show, but which I've made tons of crazy decisions in the past in life. I have walked away. In one of your podcasts, someone said they quit their job after 25 years without having a job. And I'm like, shoot, man, I've done that 20 times, man. Come on, rookie. Like, that was my MO. Like, if I had a job lined up, what's the point of quitting your job, right? Quitting your job, getting fired, that's the best in the world. You're wide open. Welcome, universe. Now, I laugh because I truly felt that way, but I have a kid and a wife who's not working at the time. That's a little, it changes. It's different feelings happen when you get fired. So, but yeah, I make light, but also there's great joy and laughter, even if it's a serious situation. I think I'm not making light of those situations. If someone were to lose their job with a family and they didn't have support, I'm not making light of that.
No, but Kenton, but dude, the way you just shared that, like, that's so beautiful. The it's okay to make light about situations that other people give all of this energy and emotion to, because the truth is, and again, I it can be argued as to what's true, but I would submit that the truth is that none of these little decisions that we feel like have such a big impact on things matter the way that we think they do,
Yeah.
right? Whether you have 30 jobs over 30 years or you have one job over 30 years, it 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 that doesn't matter, right? That doesn't matter. So to your point where you say, you're giving more attention to the YouTube thing, and maybe you feel confident that it's worthwhile, you feel confident that that's the direction you want to go, but maybe there's this small voice that says, well, what if you are wasting your time, and what if you are just pissing away effort, energy, and time, and it never amounts to anything? So what?
So what? Yeah.
You always have an opportunity to pivot,
Yeah.
right? Every experience is an opportunity for growth and learning
Mm.
if we approach it from the right perspective, right? So if you and I agree that, hey, look, we're going to maintain this posture of, we want to be anchored in the present, we want to be anchored in freedom, okay, as opposed to fear, right? I don't
Mm.
want to be past. I don't want to be anchored in the future. I want to be anchored presently. I don't want to be anchored in fear or concern, or like, oh, I wonder what so and so is going to think, or I wonder if so and so interprets this improperly and they're offended by it. No, no. I want to be anchored in freedom and self-expression, to your point earlier, right? Like, it can be edited, right? You can, but follow me on this thought, Kenton, and I'm riffing a little bit. I appreciate you listening. What if we did the work necessary to edit how we expressed ourselves beforehand, so we didn't rely on the post editing, right? We didn't rely on that post editing because we freely expressed how we felt in that moment, and we let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can't agree more, because this is what I would share. First, I want to say Rick, and I'm going to weave Rick Rubin in, because one of the big inspirations for me the past 2.5 years, going fully creative, is Rick. Are you familiar with Rick Rubin, the music producer? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal. He will say over 6 Ways to Sunday, he will say, I never did it for the money. I did it because I loved making music, producing music. And he would say, I just always saw myself as having a job, but doing this on the side because it needed to be done. And so I try to approach life that way, and threading it back into what you were talking about. When I don't know if it's a question directly from people, but this is a poll star or a litmus test for me whether I'm anchored in fear or I'm anchored in enthusiasm, and this is what I have time to do. Is when I watch, and also whether how much I edit. When I watch the video after it's done, okay, so I'm doing the painting, I'm doing voiceover on these new YouTube videos, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I turn the camera off, and I think that's all rubbish. I step away, I come back, I listen to it. Oh, and I will go as far as to say, I'm embarrassed. This needs to go in the trash can and get deleted from the hard drive. I go back and I listen to it and I watch it. And I don't think this is amazing, comma, people will love it. I put a period after this is amazing. And then the next sentence is, and I can't wait to see what happens next, because the next thing will surprise me. You said something about surprising yourself or letting people surprise you. I think part of the artistic journey is allowing yourself to be surprised. And I cannot tell you early on, and even to this day, how many things I paint, post, mutter, babble, throw out there that I think, oh, this is stupid. It'll sell. It's not everything sells, but anything I've consciously said. I drew this alligator one time early on, and I'm like, why did I draw an alligator? This is the stupidest thing I've ever drawn in my life. I put it on the website. It sold for $300 right away, somewhere in Europe. I don't know. And all the stuff, Jason, I'll end this thread by saying all the stuff that I thought, now the alligator sucks. This is good. That I threw that away because eventually I can't store it forever. And recently had a YouTube video that's well over 10 million views, and it's maybe the biggest rubbish I've ever done. But I did that design for a friend, Joe Tang, who I believe has a heart of gold and a channel where he writes hi on his hand and says help, and it stands for help inspire. And so I did a design for him, and I tied in some babbling that had nothing to do with Joe Tang on that one, or a related design of Joe Tang. I just talked about making mistakes and whatever, and my Uncle John, and I don't know what I talked about. I went on vacation, I come back, and YouTube subscriptions went from 40 something thousand to well over 100. And so the point is not getting, people need to know the point's not what can I do to get more YouTube subscriptions. Just do what you do and laugh at the fact that happens, because you can't control. I love the videos where they say, and I start watching them and I always turn them off. I'll show you how to go viral, and I start watching. I'm like, no, they're showing me how to get a lot of views for 25 seconds of your video roll. I'm gonna make a video that says how to lose weight, marry a movie star, and make $20 million, and people are gonna click on that video.
7 minutes. Yeah.
And it's just giving me my ugly butt standing here looking at you saying you shouldn't have clicked on this. So anyway.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I think you're onto something. That's probably like, do it almost as a spoof, right?
Yeah.
Like do a spoof where you just be as egregious as possible, right? How outlandish can you get? Like, can you just stretch the truth as much as you can? And I think you're right. It would probably take off.
Yeah. Well, I am playing around a little bit. So on the YouTube, I don't know if you want to segue over to YouTube. YouTube,
sure, that's perfect.
I'm like, hey, I want to make better YouTube videos. And I don't live stream at midnight because I would not have an audience, right? I live stream at a time that works for me and that works for the United States. And I specifically try not to live stream too early in the morning to reach the European continent, because it's shipping fees are so extraordinarily high for them. So I live stream in the afternoons, so I'm going to reach in the evenings, blah, blah, blah. So that said, if I'm putting time into YouTube, I want to learn on how to be seen. And how to be seen is like your still, your title card. And I understand it looks much better than just these nice little title cards look cool. It tells about the video. But the one thing there, I'll give an example that they said put in there, you don't need 8 hours of sleep. They didn't say that. Your video has to be about that. But put in there something that breaks people's brains. And
Yes.
I'm I'm playing. I've been releasing a video every single day, a long form video every single day. I shoot 10 of them at a time. Then I edit them throughout the week. Then I schedule them out there. They don't require much editing. They're about 2 minutes long. But I'm trying everything across the board. And right now I'm struggling to put these. I have a PG show, so I say no curse words. So I'm just saying silly. I'll use the word silly. These silly hooks
Right.
because I want but yeah, I still want a title card. So I had a little bit more benign hooks and stuff like that. Just a little bit about my thoughts of the video. Okay, blah blah blah. So I've been at it about 2 weeks, which is a very limited amount of time. You gotta give yourself more than 2 weeks, but
Sure.
about 150 views for all the videos a piece. And segue, little side note, the channel monetizes, and I don't know. I think you might make about $150 for every million views of a short, but you get a million, you get 2,000 views on long form, and you might make about $100. So you really want long form views, you know. So I'm like, and I wanted to expand. The heart of it's not the money. The heart of it is a deeper connection. So how do I connect deeper on long form videos? So back to the story where I picked up where I left off. Um, I'm looking at like the past 15 videos, and they're all at about 150 views, but one had 355 views right away. And it's the one I forgot to put a title card on. It just has a still of the art. So I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I don't have a happy ending to this story, and I just noticed that. So I went back in the next 10 videos. I took 3 or 4 of them, and I just got rid of the fancy hook, line, and sinker title cards, and I just put stills of the art. Just see where it goes. So
And have you had enough of a test pool for that
no, I
to
did
kind
that.
of
I did that last night. So
okay.
I'm waiting to see how. I have another 10 videos ready to upload, and I'm too impatient to. And I find also that I'm not. I think I find that if I'm in charge of making a Hollywood movie, that's gonna we can wrap our heads around that. That's gonna take time. It's gonna take planning. You have to keep moving, but you don't rush. It's like running a marathon. You just got to keep running. You
Right.
don't need to run as hard as you can each mile. You're going to die. But in my workflow right now, I like to just run a bunch of 100-yard dashes, a bunch of them. And so I found that I can shoot a 2 minute, a roughly 3 minute video, edit it down to two, and it's going to connect because I'm connecting across the board on shorts with people. And so, but this is a way to go. If you go past 59 seconds, you fall into the long form video. And the 30-second videos, the 60-second, just felt too rushed. So I'm just playing in batches of 10, and I have no idea where it's going to go. But when something starts clicking, either for me or for an audience, I don't. I heard Mr. Beast say yesterday. He goes, they put in these little segments where they try to be authentic and build character. He goes, because that's what people are asking for. And I get it. Mr. Beast is not going around taking surveys to try to change what he's about in order to answer their questions any more than when someone says on the live stream, will you paint a princess unicorn? I'll say no, because that's not what I do. But I say to people, if you want to order a commission at full price, I'll do whatever you want within my style, but I'm not a street performer taking cover song requests. So it's I don't have an answer here. I'd be interested on your thoughts. It's a conundrum of listening, being aware at what's being asked, and ask what part of me wants to change, needs to change to connect, to be more authentic with the audience.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just take it day to day.
No, it's such a beautiful question, and it's it's something that I too wrestle with, and I'm so much earlier down the path than you are, right? I'm still in elementary compared to where you are. Um, I feel like my journey of building and developing what I feel like is the value that I'll be able to offer to a community, I have the foundation, but what I'm falling short on is the communication of it, right? It's right. So I've been doing the practices. I exhibit the characteristics. What I don't do well is communicate it at scale and let it be received in a real way broadly, right? And
Mhm.
so to your point, I like what you're saying. You don't want to be so nimble and so flexible that you're not identifiable to where you're taking every request that comes across, right? Kenton's not bending over backwards for everyone. You want to maintain your authenticity, but you have to marry that with this idea of giving the people what they want, right? It's this beautiful combination of both. And but to me, what I come back to for that is how much time do you spend indwelling and reinforcing the way that you want to uh, exhibit your characteristics, right? Like exhibit your character. You can't avoid having your ness on it, right? You can't avoid having your Kenton-ness on whatever it is because you exude those characteristics in whatever you do. And then if someone has, like you said, a commissioned piece or something that they ask for, then I'm going to do my version of it, and
Yeah.
you know, you're going to be happy with it.
I love the Ness because and the thing. Okay, are you quoting Owen Wilson from You, Me, and Dupree? It's like
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite movies. I've probably
yeah,
seen it 20 times. And
right.
your Carlness, everyone's got their Ness. And what I'm learning is I have a full not I but there's a full-time moderator who just was 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. I just noticed I rarely look at analytics or spending time on that, but it was pretty new. And I tapped on analytics after live streams and I started noticing there are 3 or 4 people that are literally every single live the whole time. They were on the live from the minute I started to the minute I stopped for weeks on end. And this one guy, Drew Babies, his username, he started helping out, like just on posting comments. And I made him answering questions to people in the audience. And then I made him a moderator, and then he could tag things, and we started communicating. Now he uses his voice to help answer questions when my back's to the camera. That's why it's I don't have an external camera. I'm going off my Mac camera. That's why everything's reversed here. But it's Kenton and Drew Baby. And what I want to bring about the Ness is if I were to say to Drew, you say this, but I think you should say this because I think it will answer the question better, help serve the audience. I have totally stripped away his Ness. So now, while if he were on this call with us and we would laugh, he'd say, "No, you're a butthead, Kenton. You do that. I do sometimes." But the other day, we had. I'm not going to go into the whole story; it's too long. But we have this big. People ask all the time, "How did you two meet?" So we made up. He made up. I didn't make it up. He made up this totally crazy story on how he was driving down the coast and was at a cafe, wanted to go surfing, was too scared. I overheard him. I talked him into surfing in exchange for a free cup of coffee. He got knocked off his board, attacked by a shark, almost drowned. I rescued him, did CPR, and he said he had a vision that I was painting names for the masses. And years later pass, and he sees me on TikTok, and he felt like he owed me to be a moderator for life for free. So that's the story. But we had to change the story. Some things happened, personal things with the audience that I felt we needed to change the story. And here's the next part. I'm getting to the point.
Take your time. Take your time.
I just said, Drew, I didn't say what we should do. I go, let's just let it unfold. Truly surrendered it to him, surrendered it to me. Even in the Bible, one of the disciples asked, like, how will we know what to say? And I don't know if it's Jesus or someone's like, Don't worry. The words will be in your mouth when it's time to talk.
Yeah.
And right away, he comes up with this killer new story that totally is in line with our relationship. Him in New York, me and it just, I was crying. I was laughing so hard. It's the Nest Factor.
That's
Everyone out there, if you're watching this, go watch You, Me, and Dupree. Best movie ever.
it is. It's up there. It's got to be one of the better ones. And that Ness piece is you could build an entire just movement around that idea alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, so Drew, Drew Baby, he how did when did this happen? How long was
He
the
was.
course? How'd all that happen? Help me. I want to know.
I started live, so I went on TikTok 2020, I guess 2022, because it's been over 2 years, 2.5 years. So 2022 in February, I started posting on TikTok, vowing to never say a word. That's February. March rolls by. April rolls by. May, probably May. I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna do something, I go all in. That way, I know if I really like. I've bought a banjo. I went all in. I never play banjo. I realized that I wasn't as in as I thought I was in. But I go all in. I'm like, I'm streaming 1 hour. I had a full time job. I'm streaming 1 hour every night for 6 days a week. That's just my all in. I don't have time. I'm too old to find out like how this is going to develop. And so that was May 2 years ago. And so within 3 to 4, by the fall for sure, by fall time, September, he was on every stream helping out. And so he's been about 2 years helping out full time. He's in a situation in life that he has the time to be able to do that. And I don't want to go into too many details. Everything's cool, but
Yeah.
he has the time to help out, and he gets ticked off at me when I go on vacation and shut the show down. He's like, "What am I gonna do?" I'm like, You got my burner phone. Go on without me." I don't tell him that. But to tell you what a beautiful guy he is and how awesome he is, we did this subscriber only push just to play with. We're like, let's see if we can bump subscriptions up for fun to really create a community and and it was all anchored, or it was not anchored around the money, because the money's at low levels of subscribers, you're getting $2 a pop. It's just, if you have 20 subscribers, it's not about the money. But like, and then for 1 month, we'll push every night on the lives that we're going to have subscriber only for the sake of a kick butt subscriber only community live. And it was cool. The live was fun. I didn't want to do it, to be honest. I thought that's all I want to do is be on camera again. But I found out really quick that weekend, that day we did it, it wasn't about me. It was about the subscribers. And we threw away that whole subscriber push, the whole subscriber lives, because it was part of the reimagining of the show was to strip away this. You can't help but know that there's back end on that, and if you're pushing it, it wasn't feeling right. And so if a show grows to because you know how they call them on TikTok, they call them subscribers, and they pay $6 a month. You get 3 of that, and maybe 2, maybe not even that. You get very little money and then there's a follow. A follow is just a follow. But on YouTube, they have subscribers, which are the people who are following you, and then you have memberships where they pay money for exclusive content. So I don't want to mix it. Just to clarify, the point is of that whole story is Drew and I I'm learning, I can't speak for Drew, I'm learning how to work with people for the first time after being an entrepreneur for 10 years with employees back in the aughts. Is that what we call them? The aughts? 2000, 2010?
Yeah.
And because I vowed to not have employees ever. Drew's not an employee. But if you work with someone 2.5 hours every day, it's a relationship as deep as an employee. So even though the money's not being exchanged, so it's exciting. It's another.
Kenton, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear how that happened organically and that y'all both, to my point earlier, right? Y'all mutually appreciate each other. You know that each of you bring the value to the relationship the way that you do. and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thanks.
What are you excited about? What are you excited about moving forward? Right? Like what gets Kenton jazzed up and kind of, roused?
I think what's getting me jazzed up this year is the past couple years. I told you that even though I went through a breakthrough group and all that stuff, moving to California, I recognized buying a sailboat, living on a sailboat, planning a trip around the world that never happened. All these things were me running from the present moment. And there's nothing wrong with living on a sailboat. It's the best. But it's also the worst. And just knowing that. So what I'm excited. So the past couple years, even though things have been like crazy, this is way more than anyone's ever offered me to work a job. And so, and I won't say numbers, but twofold. So it's pretty much a no brainer. And
As
right now,
when you say that, you're talking about like what you revenue in what you're doing right now is twofold in any job that you've ever been in, is what you're saying?
yeah,
That's incredible. All
yeah.
right, continue. I was just
Gross,
clarifying.
gross net doesn't matter. Yeah. So twofold. Um, And so what I'm excited about is the past couple of years. I'm obsessed with bike trips. I love week-long bike trips. I've never taken one, but I'd love a month-long. I love bike trips, bike camping, just riding for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles and camping as you go. I love it. But I was finding it was causing more stress, the training, the preparation, and I realized I was running from something. And I still don't know quite I'm running from, but I know that this year when I pulled the plug on this year's trip, I've done 2 trips in a row, and when I pulled the plug on the trip, a lot of anxiety went away, and what filled that space of anxiety was I'm excited about just this sounds weird, but just working more, like go to work. This is back to the Bible. Like I said, I grew up in the church. I know the Bible. Um, there's a time for rest and there's a time for work. There's a time for sorrow. There's a time for joy. There's a time, and there's a song about it, right? There's a time for everything. And right now it's a time for work. And even I'm not into astrology at all. However, a friend of mine who is a Zen Buddhist, if he said, can't jump off this bridge, I would, because I know Jeff would never tell me to jump off, do something that would be harmful. And he's asked me about, he was out visiting for a week and he's in New Mexico and I'm in San Diego. And every morning we took a walk on the beach for a couple hours. And he said, hey, are you open to astrology? And I'm like, yeah, I know nothing about it, but I trusted him. And the point of the reading, I understood nothing. I don't know if you're familiar. It's like houses and stars and moons and crossings and risings and flowings. It literally was like chemistry to me, and I got a D in chemistry. But at the end of the reading, she sent me the printout and suggested that in 2 years from this, no, coming up in the spring of 26. It would be a good time. She says my signs point to rest, a time to rest. And that will be a time when, there'll be a shift already. Just if you have kids, there's a shift in scheduling and timing at that time that will be unfolding. That would be, in my mind, a time to double down on work, but going to college. But I feel good. Like I've shifted last year or this week, past 2 weeks. I've been working more. Like I finished my live streams at night, and I used to just go to bed at 9 or 9:30. But now I'm like, I feel good. I feel the energy lifted when I work, because work to me is not. It's not a grind. It's not like your boss asking you to stay another hour. I'm not uploading, but I'm painting. I'm doing creative things, and the energy always lifts. And I find myself on the nights I stay up to 10:30 creatively, I wind up waking up at 4:30 or 5, well rested, and yeah. So I'm excited about work. It sounds crazy. I'm excited just about work, and work for me right now is the Your Name Matters show and creating better YouTube content.
That's exciting. Um, are you familiar at any level with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi or Transcendental Meditation?
I am familiar with Transcendental Meditation because it's come across on some podcasts I've listened to, and there's a big Transcendental Meditation thing I think in Encinitas or San Diego. I know very, very little about it. I have steered clear because it just seems like you can only, spin so many plates, and I have what I consider my okay. So someone asked me, "Do you meditate?" And then the ball's right back to you. And I said, 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night. I close my eyes in silence and sit. I don't know if that's meditation, but that's what I do. So,
Yeah, no, it
back to
very much.
transcendental. Yeah.
So I went through the whole course, did the studying, did the thing, did spent time with the master and did all the stuff, and then I have these certain recordings that was Maharishi himself kind of delivering his thoughts on it. He describes this concept of um of the dichotomy of resting and action.
Uh huh.
Okay. And he tells this story about drawing back on the bow is kind of like charging up your energy, right? Drawing back on the bow. And then when you release the bow, then the arrow, kind of expresses the energy. Okay. So the idea that when you're charging up and then releasing the energy, the thought is that the energy that as you release it, it will over time dissipate, right?
Yeah.
It'll eventually into the ground, right?
Yeah.
But he describes this concept of restful activity. So it's this kind of a unique paradox that most people don't associate with, but the idea that you can be engaged in activity and that activity actually be energy giving, right?
Oh,
And so that sounds to me like what you just described, right? Like for me, there are a lot of people that would end this conversation and they would be exhausted as a result of what just happened over however much time we were speaking.
mm-hmm.
But to your point, I'm going to leave this conversation and I won't be able to sit still following this conversation because
Yeah.
of the energy that wells up within me as a result of connecting with you, regardless of how deep or shallow we were able to get. But I just love the idea of hearing your story, having a chance to express how I relate to your story, hopefully drawing things out of your story. Like to me, that's energy giving. So it sounds like what you just described is work is not an exhausting thing for you. Work is an energy giving thing for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. I have two friends, and they have very successful businesses. One even more than another on numbers, and they take pride in it and they do their best and they pour themselves into it. However, they've both said, I'm going to call the industry paper bags because we don't need to name their industry.
I
They go,
get it.
Kenton, I don't really care about paper bags, but I care about the aspect of running a paper bag company. I care about doing my job the best, and I feel blessed in the sense of lucky, whatever we want to call it, in that I do care about visual communication art. I do care. Hey, Maharishi is. Do they have an international university in Iowa, or is that?
Possibly.
Or is that something? I'll have to look up Maharishi Transcendental Med. Is it? Should I look up Maharishi Transcendental Meditation?
Yep. It'll come
Yeah,
up.
I've done a
Yes.
little. Sadhguru had a course. I did a Sadhguru course. So I grew up in church like you, where it was really like I played by all the rules, and I don't want to make the show go on forever. We can wrap it up whenever you want to do a closing statement. But I remember just play. I thought if I played by the rules, once again, I was very accomplished based and checking the boxes. And one of the rules was you don't like what we're teaching here with the Bible is the only way, and everything else by default is will take you away from the way. How about that? They don't say wrong, but it's not the path you want to walk. And I've just found that there's some, especially Paramahansa Yogananda, is an Indian guru who founded the Self-Realization Fellowship in Encinitas, California, where I live. And
I'm very
anytime, are you
read
familiar?
read autobiography by Yogi.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
the
And
deal.
when
If there's those type of concepts to be explored, I've spent time with it. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
good. And that's why I asked who inspired you, because what I was fascinated was, I'm like, okay, this guy loves Jesus more than anyone I've ever met. And I just read his book, and I don't say that to rebuttal Christians, but sometimes when a Christian will bring up an aspect that concerns them about if you live in Encinitas, you live with the Self Realization Fellowship. They own half the town, like as far as property and buildings, and it's the south end of town it's beautiful gardens and koi ponds, and it's just phenomenal, and a very healthy thing. And it's I think it's interesting how everything ties in, connects. It's not interesting at all because it just makes sense. If I take a walk, 7-Eleven's on the way. Whoa, I don't say, whoa, dude, that's so trippy, man. I can't, that's divine. No, it's reality, you know? And so I moved to Encinitas. Of course, I'm going to be connected to the Self Realization Fellowship, or at least aware of it. And then decades later, I get into listening to Michael Singer. He down in Yeah, and he considers Paramahansa his guru, and it's just everything's so interconnected. It's I don't want to use the phrasing we say. It's so interconnected. It's scary, but it's so interconnected. It's mind numbing. It's fabulous.
I am again. I knew Kenton. I figured we would relate on a lot of this, but yeah, the Untethered Soul was one of the more impactful books that I've ever read. I've also read his other works, right? Living Unsurrendered, uh, or Living Surrendered, and then also the Surrender Experiment. I
Yeah,
read all three of them. Um, and yeah, I actually have a good friend that just went to the center of the universe, his little compound that he
yeah,
describes in the book. So he lives out in Florida, and so he went and visited. And yeah, so very, very familiar with him. And I think that to your point, there's a lot of good. There's a lot of, man, just accuracy in how that brother thinks, like how he shares what he shares and how he goes about what he does. It was a huge step for me in the depth of my spirituality. It was a huge step for me in the depth of my centeredness, of my mindfulness. But maybe part of, to your point, and I don't know if we align on this, but I don't feel like spending time with Paramahansa or the thoughts of Michael Singer or Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. I don't feel like spending time on those exercises takes away from my Christianity, right? I don't feel like it subtracts from it. I don't feel like it is a hindrance to it. I feel like I'm constantly looking at the associations and the ways that there is very much alignment between these two different, if you want to call it, schools of thought. But I don't have to define. This kind of goes back to something that I feel like we were touching on earlier, like how I choose to spend my time and how I choose to give my attention to a certain activity or what I'm involved in doesn't have to, nor does it define me. It's
yeah,
something I'm engaged in. It's not my identity, right? My identity is not in the act. Now, me being involved in something might tell someone or communicate externally things that I do care about or things that I'm interested in. But to paint this broad stroke and say that every person who does said thing is all of the same camp or can all pretty well align, I think that's just, it's inaccurate, right? It's
yeah,
ignorant. It's ignorant, in fact, right? It's like saying all artists are blank, right? Like,
yeah,
let's pick a derogatory term, right? All artists cheat on their spouses or something, right?
yeah,
Like, what are you talking, right? Like that, like, what are you talking about,
yeah.
right?
No women throw themselves at me. Come on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm getting gypped here. No, Yeah, I found that after stepping away from the formal church, and just being open to reading other stuff and all that stuff, that this past Sunday, I have a really good friend who goes to church, traditional church, every Sunday, and I was just I love spending time with him, and I'm like, he usually cruises around, looks for me in town at a coffee shop after church, and I just went to church with him. And what I found was that after decades of being away or a decade of being away from the church, that everything I've been reading and studying in a church's message, it all does this, it just does this.
It, that is so accurate. And I would to your point, I still go to formal church, right, on the weekend, and oftentimes through the week for different reasons. And I would say that my experience has been that I attend differently,
Mhm. Yeah,
right? That's how I would put it. I attend with a different foundation. I attend with a different understanding. I attend with a different relationship, right? I attend with a different purpose that I don't feel like could have been cultivated inside the four walls of that building on Sundays once a week, right? The time that it took for that to happen for me, and I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but the time and effort that it took, or surrender that it took for me, could have only happened by hours and hours and hours, for me, in silence and in contemplation, right? So this idea of self-observation and self-reflection, and just getting more in touch with Jason, and spending more time observing Jason, and spending more time, what I think of as actually listening to the instruction that was given by, right, the red letters,
yeah,
right, the actual instruction, as opposed to seeing it through the lens of this institution,
yeah,
right? That is kind of how I would frame that.
totally.
But to me too, though, Kenton, what's so, and I'm not overtly, and if you notice any of my other content, I don't overtly like announce anything to do with that, and that's on purpose.
Yeah,
The reason that's on purpose is because, um I feel like there's an opportunity to reach and connect with people that, before interacting, they may have decided that faith is not the answer to their suffering,
yeah,
but then only after being received so unbelievably, unconditionally accepted, then the curiosity gets piqued to where it's like, wait, you just interacted with me in such a way that was so wholesome, so accepting, so forgiving, but then you also are part of this group that I previously thought of as a negative thing. It's like,
mhm,
yeah. And when those two things conflict, then the person is then left with, well, man, maybe I maybe at some level I need to rethink, right?
yeah,
Or they don't. Or they
yeah,
don't. But
yeah.
but either way.
Cool.
Kenton, thank you so much for your time, man. Any last thoughts? How can folks reach you? And obviously, I'll put your info in the thing to the extent you want to hear from folks. But I have really kind of two thoughts. Who would you be interested in connecting with? Like, who proactively do you think you would say, if there were this big, public service announcement or bullhorn, and we said, hey, so and so, Kenton would like to meet you, who might those people be? And then how would people get in touch with you?
Well, answer them backwards, and I'll ask a question. I'm available at Kenton Hoppus everywhere. KentonHoppus.com. All my handles are Kenton Hoppus, at Kenton Hoppus. It's just that simple. Just KentonHoppas. I don't check anything but TikTok, and the only thing I check is website, TikTok, YouTube. That those are my primary. So and then when you said, what was this, the first one? Like someone I'd like to meet, or something I'd like to do, or what was that? What's the clarification on that other question?
Sure. So I like the idea of just setting the intention
Ah,
of Kenton would like to be introduced to, or Kenton would like to connect with
Yes.
someone, right?
Okay.
Like just, you got it? Okay,
Yes,
there you go.
I don't have a. I don't. Okay, Eddie Vedder, but I'm not gonna say Eddie Vedder. But I'm gonna say Pearl Jam, Eddie Vedder. No, I have for a long time felt as if what is channeling through me artistically connects deeply in the music industry. So I'm not going to say how that looks. That's a slippery slope. But connection within the music industry in a partnership in making something awesome. I don't know how that looks or who that would be, but Eddie Vedder. But no, I kid. That's just a joke. You know what I mean? I'm just so inspired by music. I sat in church, tapping my feet, singing, and my mom's like, "You have too much rock and roll in your head." And yeah, I just music really drives me. I can work in silence. That's beautiful too. But man, I get lost in it. So I would love to connect with I'm not gonna say industry, I'm gonna say music and me, because like your name matters, and there seems like there's been movements that music matters. So
Sure. I love that. And I can very much relate to the musician of sorts, right? So I grew up in a household where my dad played keyboard,
okay.
right? And so I grew up in an environment where I think of as like maybe a bootleg version of like the Rolling Stones, right? Like these guys that are rocking and jamming, like 70s, 80s, like all of that time frame of music is just so near and dear to me because I
Yeah.
grew up listening to it from like my single digit years. I was a groupie at the age of 7, right? And
Yeah.
so that for me is that's my upbringing, and there's a lot of positives to that and a lot of soul that comes from that, but then there's also, as you can expect, there's a lot of negatives around being exposed to certain things at a very early age
Yeah.
that you might not want for your kids to be exposed to. But either way, as I've shared with you, the way I see life now, every single experience that we've had in the past is intended for us. It's not to us or in any of this negative way of interpreting things. So thank you again so much for your time, and look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah. Hey, can I take us out on something I've been experimenting that we use on the live stream show? If you'd be so kind as let me take us out on a bell ring. Every time we use this bell in the live stream show just to bring calmness if we
I
feel like
love it.
sporadic. And I also been using this bell ring for the YouTube videos. I think it's just a nice subtle intro. So if there's anything else you want to say before the bell, say it now. We'll ring it and we'll go on out.
Roll with it.